Good, man. How about you?
Give everybody a chance to get settled. Let me begin by making just a few comments. I know there's a lot of concern about the mayor who will not be here. Most, if not all of you, are aware that Mayor Hallman has had a health episode which resulted in some pretty serious surgery that he had about a week and a half, about 9 days ago. He is out of the hospital and is recovering. It will take him some time, but he wanted me especially tonight to thank all of you who have sent well wishes and prayers his way, and I want to personally thank you for that as well. As I said, Alan is making progress each day, gets a little better, and we hope to have him back up here sometime in March. Probably not in 2 weeks, but possibly our later meeting in the month of March. Thank you, and with that, we will call our meeting to order tonight. City of Hapeville's mid-month work session. Roll call will reflect, with the exception of Mayor Hallman, who is absent, that all the members of council are present. At this time, we'll entertain any questions about items on our agenda, and I will begin on my left. George.
Yeah. Thank you. George Rogan, 2108 Woodland Drive, Hapeville 30354. This is about a bond issue which is on the agenda.
Can't hear
Is
you.
there a microphone there, George? Pardon?
Microphone.
Microphone.
And a hearing aid.
It's on, right? Is it on?
Put it to
Show the
your
green light.
put it to your
Is it
chin.
on?
There you go. I got it.
What Brendan Dalton has been saying is true. In the Akron bond validation hearing, there was one man, Brendan Dalton, with initial training by Mickey Williams, and then more training on his own. In a courtroom against Holland and Knight and Oral Taylor, attorneys with millions of dollars behind them, and years and years and years of experience with bonds. In a courtroom where the judge said, in all of his 30 years experience, that was the first time anyone had ever challenged a bond in this court. Very few citizens, much less attorneys, have the guts to challenge a bond in court. It is rare. And Brendan Dalton was successful. This was David versus Goliath. So though there may be those who have issues with Brendan, know this, the man knows what he is talking about. Tonight, this council has the rare opportunity to deny this bond based upon proven knowledge of bond issues. There are many governing authorities across this nation facing the same dilemma, but they don't have citizens with the knowledge and with the guts to challenge. And they don't have citizen attorneys who are Davids like Brendan Dalton, who know how bonds work and how they are devised. All those other towns have is whining after the fact. But Hapeville is far more fortunate, because Hapeville, among all the towns in this country and in this region, has the unique opportunity to listen to your very own bond experienced citizens and deny this bond. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of parliamentary procedure, and it's more of a technicality kind of question, probably for legal counsel. I do understand by charter that the mayor is not present and essentially acting as mayor pro tem, acting as mayor. Do we need to make any motion when we're starting our essentially new business that states that as such? And sort of my secondary part of that question is when we're sort of in a four-person system where three make up council and one makes up mayor pro tem, our person in this case.
Okay.
What technically constitutes a quorum? Is two people together considered a quorum, or is it still based on the four council, one mayor?
Three total.
Three total still consists of quorum. And we don't need to pass any motion or resolution.
The charter is specific, anytime the mayor is absent for whatever reason, as alderman at large, become mayor pro tem and preside.
Okay.
So I don't see the need to do that. There may be several meetings where we're
Just-
in this spot.
Just wanted to make sure, just in
Okay.
case we needed to formally state that now until it could help. So, thanks.
Anything to add, Steve, to that? Okay. Others on my left, please.
Mickey Williams, 3333 Myrtle Street. I know tonight that you're going to be talking about appointments. I would like for you to consider some facts about our existing attorney before you make a decision. Part of what I'm going to say tonight has to do with actions of the attorney. 2 different times he has not told the truth, once to a superior court and the other to the district attorney. Mr. Fincher has already filed with the district attorney asking them to validate this bond, even though you all haven't approved it. Somehow he managed to get the Development Authority Director to sign off, and that was, the district attorney, I understand, was told that this was finished, it was done. So it really doesn't matter what y'all vote, because it's already been done. So we know who's running the city. The other time that he took this information to the state, when a group of citizens challenged the Water Sewer Authority to get us, you dare not challenge, to get us, he decided to file a suit against the 4 of us, asking for my personal financials. When asked, I asked the council, did you approve, did you tell him to do that? The council said no.
Okay, don't steer away from the agenda item.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not steering away. What I'm saying is, Mike, these are things that I think you need to consider. When you hire an attorney, you want to make sure that you're getting the best information. For 9 years, this city spent the hotel motel money wrong. Mr. Fincher was the attorney, and he said you can do anything you want to as long as you can get by with it. But of course, if we go to court, he's going to make more money. So, that kind of bothers me too. The other thing is, the Water Sewer Authority, he sat right here in council and said, to me and others, we do not have a Water Sewer Authority. Found out not only do we have one,
You're
but,
off the agenda.
I'm sorry?
No.
Okay.
You're off the agenda
Okay,
item.
I'm sorry. Well, it has to
And
do
we'll
with
have
the
public
attorney.
comment
All right.
again.
Okay, the comments are, please look into what has already happened. If employees for this city or contractors can do anything they please, lie about who they're representing or what they're about, then we're in serious trouble, y'all. And I think one more day is putting us in jeopardy. Please. Now, read one thing. This bothered me too. This came out in the paper.
Is it germane to the agenda?
Yes, it is.
Because we'll have time at the end where you can talk about anything.
This is true.
All right.
This is something that was said by the attorney to the public on our behalf, having to do with the suit that we have pending. Mr. Fincher says, the complaint was just received and we have not had time to review and analyze the contents. Nevertheless, we believe that the allegations of attempted concealment by city agents are not true. So he's already made up his mind before the fact comes about. The woman has lied.
Thank you.
Consider it.
Thank you. Others on my left. Mike?
Mike Murphy, 201 Colorado Avenue. Mine is a technical question for you all. Is this thing still on?
Can't hear you.
Is it working?
Seems to be.
Put it near your
The
chin.
meeting that was held here on May 2nd of 17, Councilman Josh Powell made a motion, and it was seconded by Diane Fennick, to request that our city manager put out an RFP for a new attorney. It was discussed and passed 3-0. There were only 3 members present there.
Can't hear a word.
He was supposed to respond.
Mike, we can't hear
you. Can't hear you at all.
Really, comments need to come at the end because it's not an agenda item. We're all aware of what you're speaking about.
This pertains to the appointment of the people that you're supposed to be looking into tonight.
Very good.
As employees for the next year. This is very critical.
Well, we're aware of the motion in May.
Well, then my question to you is, why hasn't it been acted on? It was
Just
directed to
hasn't
be-
hasn't happened.
Let me finish. It was directed to be done by the council to the city manager by the next meeting, which was June 6th. It was totally ignored.
We don't even have the same city manager, so.
It doesn't matter. It
Okay.
falls on the person who replaces him. You can't just ignore mandates from council because you don't like them.
Okay,
Understood?
thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to have a result of that because you cannot go forward with Mr. Fincher in any way until you resolve this issue. It's an open item.
Thank you. Anyone else on my left? Agenda items. On my right. Come on.
Yes.
Hopefully it's still on. Name and address, please.
334 Laurel
On your chin. Put it right under your
You're
chin.
gonna really have to lay into that
You
mic.
have to put it right up to your mouth.
Get the green light on.
It's Tanya Wisner, 344 Colorado. I am an active member of the Development Authority. The resolution regarding the bond for the True Hotel, in my opinion, has been vested out. We had more than one occasion to hear from the developer, to hear from the attorney. The issues that are being brought up were also concerning.
We can't hear. Can't hear her.
The issues
I
that
can't
we
hear.
had were also being brought up during the Development Authority meetings. Mr. Fincher acted in good faith, and his representative did as well, because we had some similar questions, and they were vested out. And I think at this point, we've had it go before the Planning Commission, it's come before the Development Authority, and now we're here. We made a recommendation as the Development Authority, and I feel like our recommendation was solid, so I would hate to see this continue to kick down the road, and we really need to act on this in good faith and continue to promote the business coming in, because many of the questions were answered. They're in the minutes for the meetings that we had.
Okay, thank you.
Can somebody give us the gist of what Tanya said?
Anyone else? She made some comments regarding item 7.1. Others on my right. Okay, we'll close the questions for agenda items. Item number 5 on our agenda tonight is 5.
Sorry, sir, I have a motion real quick. I would like to motion to amend the agenda to essentially remove the element of the consent agenda. I would like these to be considered separately as 6.1.
Okay, let's get through the public hearing and then make a motion regarding the consent agenda. Is that okay?
That's fair and fine, thank you.
Okay. All right, and I believe you had a statement you wanted to make in regard to the public hearing.
Yes, previously had done some consulting with Mr. Paul Singh, conducted in 2016, of which I had received payment in 2017. In terms of developing this relationship with this applicant, over the following year, it leads me to recuse myself from this public hearing. We're a city of ethics, and I want to maintain ethical standards necessary to not encumber the decision of my fellow colleagues of the governing authority, and as such, I'll remain sitting here, but we'll try not to make any comment because I've recused myself. Thanks.
Okay, other two good with going forward? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Councilman Horsley. 5.1, consideration and action to rezone the property located at 800 Doug Davis Drive, parcel ID 14098LL0146 from UV Urban Village to C2 General Commercial. Mr. Singh is seeking to rezone the property located at 800 Doug Davis Drive, partial ID number the same, from UV to C2 General Commercial for the purpose of constructing a restaurant and a convenience store with fuel pumps And at this time, we will recognize the applicant. You have comments? You doing? Okay.
Good evening, I'm Bill Johnston.
Use the
Microphone.
Good evening, I'm Bill Johnston.
That's not on.
It's on, he
You
just
can
needs to
whisper.
speak up a little bit.
I'll be presenting the application tonight with me are the applicants Paul Singh and Nadir Tajani. Chris Schaefer is here for Planning Commission. I don't see him tonight. He's representing Focus Brands and Lowe's Restaurant in particular. Emmanuel Pasima is the architect and site planner for the project. The owner of the property is Matt Freeman. And finally, John Azar is representing the owner. The property is located at 800 Doug Davis Drive. It's the former site of Freeman Forms, office supply business at Doug Davis and Clay Place. That building is vacant, as you probably know, and would be demolished under this proposal. The application proposes a 4,000 square foot convenience store with 4 fuel pumps and a 3,000 square foot Lowe's restaurant, approximately 4,000 square feet of outdoor dining. These 2 buildings will be accessed from the street by pedestrians along a covered walkway and by rear entrances linking to the parking and the fuel pumps, both of which will be to the rear of the building. Vehicle access will be from Doug Davis and Clay Place. The application proposed a C2 conditional zoning with proper conditions being the uses and the configuration proposed on the site plan and the rendering with minor adjustments as the development moves through the review and approval process. That would involve Planning Commission and the Design Review Board. The C2 conditional zoning was proposed based on the racetrack application, which featured approval of a conditional use permit to allow a gasoline service station. Understanding the context is somewhat different, being away from the interstate, a different approach is surfaced. We learned at Planning Commission last week that preservation of the UV zoning was a priority. Without debating whether the C2 zoning would constitute spot zoning, given that 3 to 4 parcels west on Virginia Avenue are, I don't hit Mike with this laser, but say Mike, thank you. This area here is C2, there's the site right there. Within 2 short blocks are 3 to 4 properties that are zoned C2. The applicant would be interested in the approach that was discussed at Planning Commission. And I believe it was in their motion that a UV conditional zoning be considered. And the conditions would be as proffered here in the earlier C2 conditional application, meaning the 2 buildings, 4 pumps to the rear, parking to the rear, outdoor dining to the front. There was also concern on part of the Planning Commission that C2 zoning might allow the full range of uses permitted in that zone. C2 zoning districts are very permissive. They have some of our worst uses. We're not seeking any of those uses. We're seeking only the uses that are proposed on this site plan. And again, that's 4 fuel pumps serving a maximum of 8 vehicles in a restaurant. Anything beyond that would require a rezoning application brought before this council on a rezoning hearing. So the concern that that full range of C2 uses might be available to this applicant is really unfounded. Proposed development is consistent with existing development at this Virginia Avenue Gateway node as to scale. In fact, as noted in the planner's report, the proposed design addresses the pedestrian scale to some degree. That report also describes the character sketch featuring such development patterns as fronting the street with parking behind and a well-designed streetscape with benches, streetlights, and trees to facilitate a pedestrian-friendly environment. We believe that the buildings full to the street, parking to the rear, and the outdoor dining will help achieve such character. Artwork that can be accomplished on this site, which is very visible coming down 4-lane Virginia Avenue from the west, will also advance other plan objectives, such as incorporate artistic strengths, benches, sculptural elements into streetscape design to reflect Hapeville branding. We plan to cooperate with the city to incorporate such amenities into the outdoor dining area. Planner's report also acknowledged that the proposed food store and restaurant are uses permitted in the UV zone. As seen in the proffered conditions in the zoning application, the zoning and development of the property will be limited to these two uses. And I'd like to read those proffered conditions for the record, to brief. The site plan as approved as a condition of zoning shall control the development, including a limitation on the number of fuel pumps to a maximum of 8 vehicles being served at any one time. Artwork, subject to city approval, shall be installed at the front of the property in the outdoor dining area. Site lighting will be directed downward onto the property, and no servicing of vehicles will be offered. By today's standards, the number of fuel pumps is very small. 4 pumps, 8 vehicles. The street side, which is the front door of the development on a highly visible property, will present a festive image, pedestrian in character. This plan and the many renderings that have been prepared for this application has evolved somewhat. There was earlier rendering that and what many people said was the rear of the building was to the front, and front to the rear. We have now incorporated this design at the front and rear. Pedestrian access from the street and the outdoor dining area would be by way of a covered walkway rather. Here, this is the intersection here, Doug Davis, Virginia Avenue, Clay Place. So the buildings can be accessed from the front by pedestrians from the public sidewalk, and it can also be accessed from the pumps or parking spaces, gaining access to the 2 buildings. This last shot is just showing the fuel pumps and the rear elevation. I'd like to answer any questions you have on the application this time.
Okay, hearing none, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Now recognize Lynn Patterson from our staff to speak to this item.
Good evening. The Planning Department received a rezoning application for C2 General Commercial with proper conditions for 800 Doug Davis Drive. And again, as was originally stated, that the proposed land use is a restaurant and convenience store with rear located fuel pumps. The present land use is commercial retail. When we evaluate a rezoning, we have to look at a few things. The first thing we look at is our comprehensive plan. And within our comprehensive plan is a future land use map. And that was all adopted last June. We just had an overall comp plan update. At that time, the comprehensive plan suggested that the property in question would actually be high-intensity mixed use. And you can see that, like my arrow shifted a little bit on this map, but on the first page you'll see the property is a little bit to the right, at that corner. It's on the east side of that kind of cul-de-sac. Anyway, so when you look at the future land use map that is proposed and will be adopted shortly in the next month or so, that is meant to be high-intensity mixed use. Currently, it is commercial. Along with our comprehensive plan update in LCI, as Mr. Johnson noted, This is the Virginia Avenue Gateway Note, and the purpose of this note is to create a welcoming gateway to the city. I'm going to steal the thunder for a second, if I may, and announce that the ARC just awarded the city of Hapeville a grant in the amount of $70,000 to be matched with another $15,000 to look at the feasibility of a roundabout at that particular intersection. So that will be a nice major, should it be feasible after the study, and there's a number of other things that we have in the grant, that could dramatically change that entrance as a focal point for the city as designated in our LCI updated comp plan update. So it's supposed to be a welcoming gateway. Another component is mixed land uses, to create a walkable district where one could live, work, and play. The character should have development fronting the street with parking behind, a well-designed streetscape, as Mr. Johnson mentioned, with benches, streetlights, trees, and creative crosswalks to facilitate a pedestrian-friendly environment. All of this is in your planners report. The current zoning is urban village, and I've highlighted one of the intents of the current village, the current zoning district is to discourage land uses that are automobile or transportation related. So clearly, this is why they're requesting a zoning change. Is the UV gas station is automobile related, and that would be incompatible with the urban village zoning district. However, this is in the middle of an urban village zoning district, so this would be one parcel that would have potentially automobile-related activity in the midst of other activities that are not, other uses that are not. Permitted within the UV zone, this is current, are restaurants with a maximum size of 6,000 square feet. So the Moe's restaurant would be permissible, as proposed, the Moe's restaurant or similar would be permissible. The grocery store, the food store, the convenience store, if you will, would require a conditional use permit under existing zoning. So on one hand, the restaurant would be allowed, but you'd have to come in for a conditional use for the convenience store. The code is silent on fuel pumps in UV zoning. Just trying to give you the lay of the land where we are now, what would be required should it happen. So basically what would be required is to allow for fuel pumps, the Board of Appeals would have to allow for it, and a conditional use permit would be required for the food store, as well as variances for setbacks given the site plan. And I should say that we received, the first time, we did receive a site plan in advance with the original proposal. We saw elevations, which caused staff a lot of consternation, and the Planning Commission, what the original one was last Tuesday, because it was basically the rear of the building was facing Virginia Avenue, which is a huge problem.
Just wanted to let somebody know their alarm is going off. It just went off. So.
Thank you. Anyway, so the applicant worked, and we received last night at 5:30 a revised site plan that did, as Mr. Johnson noted, has that same kind of facade. So you basically have a dual facade, one on Virginia and one on toward the back for the fuel pumps for safety purposes. So we appreciate that that was updated. We have not had ample time to review all the revisions and all the site plan in terms of what that would mean for the project. Should it be rezoned to C2? There's a couple of things. If you just do a straight C2 and not with conditions, it would allow for a series of uses which are listed in the planner's report. Again, that's not, they are requesting that it's C2C, which would be commercial, general commercial with conditions that would allow only these uses of food store, restaurant, and fuel pumps without requiring conditional use permit. The fuel pumps would require a conditional use permit, but the food store would not. Again, in reviewing the application, the existing land use is commercial and retail, so that's something we have to take into consideration. We have to look at a rezoning request, whether it would create an isolated district unrelated to adjacent and nearby districts. The adjacent areas are designated UV, which is a mixed-use designation intended to support pedestrian-oriented development. And as stated, while the proposed design does address the pedestrian scale to some degree, the rezoning of the property without the proper conditions of the exact site plan that was presented to us briefly at last week's. So this report was based upon what we saw last week in terms of elevation and site plan. Would actually would that particular site plan would not meet the intent of the district, okay, because it had the rear facing. So I just received this other information less than 24 hours ago, so it's a little hard for me to provide a full analysis. Third question is population density pattern. Would it overtax public facilities? We don't see that it would create an increase in the demand for public facilities as long as it were C2C with proper conditions. The cost of city government and other entities in providing, improving, or increasing or maintaining public utilities, school streets, or other public safety measures. We don't actually see that there would be a negative impact. The fifth condition does cause some concern, and that is the impact on the environment. The proposed project is located according to the flood maps as of 9/8/2013. That's the last one that's been published on their website, is that it's a special flood zone area A, so specific measures would need to be taken to develop in this area. And of course, given that it's you have a gas station, the risk of flooding may be of concern and should be investigated by appropriate agencies. The next one is whether the proposed zoning map amendment would be a deterrent to the value or improvement of development of adjacent property. It would allow for some degree more intense use, but certainly would allow for that more auto-centric use. Are there any reasons why the property cannot be used in accordance with existing regulations, and that's because the fuel pumps are not allowed, and that would be the food store, convenience store would require the additional use permits, which actually would be permissible, but it's really the fuel pumps that's a question. The aesthetic, as the applicant has, as I said, was quite responsive to our concerns last Tuesday and provided a new site plan and a general elevation, didn't provide a general an elevation, but provided a general schematic that showed that they would add pedestrian-oriented elements and facade elements on the Virginia Avenue side. My concern is that that elevation that was presented last week was not consistent with the Architectural Design Standards, Zoning Code, or LCI study recommendations. Again, that was last week. Is the proposed zoning map amendment consistent with the land use plan? It does designate it as commercial, and later on will be a high-intensity mixed-use area. Again, character of the zoning district. The UV would allow for the restaurant, the food store, the fuel pumps would not. The relation that the proposed zoning map amendment bears to the purpose of the overall zoning scheme, and that is, it would alter the purpose of the zoning district by allowing a general commercial use, albeit specific, but it's still listed under that C2, the fuel pumps in the middle of the UV district. A specific site plan was provided. There is a residential neighborhood in close proximity, and I discussed today at our meeting with the applicant that they may want to contact the neighborhood association, since they're in close proximity, at least allow for a conversation.